Welcome to this week's Friday Waffle, folks. Yeah, very first time I saw this game power up on my PC, I think it was probably 1997, was an absolute game changer for me. I mean, I've been playing video games since 1982, 1983. I've had most systems in my life, and I can categorically say I have never been as excited about anything game related in my life until I saw this run on my my lowly Pentium 60, I think it was, and that was through the wonders of MAME. Now, if you don't know, MAME it first came out on the 24th of December 1996, and it's now 25 years old. So anyway, listen, before we talk MAME, I think it would be rude and cheeky to not have a game, so let's stick a credit in and see if I've still got it. Have some of that. Still got it. Anyway, folks, let's talk MAME. So yeah, I know you've heard this story a million times, but this is going to be a MAME special. Given the anniversary, it's now, can you believe it is now quarter of a century old? Wow, that is mental. Anyway, yeah, the year for me is 1997. I hadn't long moved into my own house. I just moved into a flat. And I had literally just got, excuse me, I'd literally just got the internet, and one of the first things that I did was just Google arcade games, Commodore 64, whatever it was, and then I says it was one night I got a phone call from Grant, or Hippie Grant as he was called back then, telling me that he had a disc which was going to make my jaw hit the floor when I saw what was on it. Obviously I thought, oh, porn. He says, oh no, it's much better than that. He says, I know how much you love all your classic arcade games. He says, well, this disc is going to allow you to play them. Now I immediately thought, right, okay, somebody has ported, you know, versions of arcade games. He went, no, it says it's not ports, it is the actual arcade game. Now my little brain could not actually figure out how on earth could my lowly, well, at that point, to be fair, the Pentium 60 was a bit of a monster, how could my monstrous PC possibly play a game from 1983? How is that possible? I mean, how can you fit something like that or that into a PC? And more importantly, how could it go on a floppy disk? How could something that size go on a floppy disk? I just couldn't understand it. Anyway, moving forwards, I think it was 3 or 4 days. So not only was Grant teasing me, telling me about this, he said that he couldn't manage to get up to my house for a few days. So anyway, these days were like the 3 longest days of my life. Eventually Grant turned up with said discs. We popped them into the floppy drive. Now kids, if you don't know what a floppy drive is, you know that save icon at the top of a Microsoft Word, the little save icon, that was called a floppy disk, and that's what we had to run games off back in the day. So anyway, yeah, I put the floppy disk into the floppy disk drive. Yeah, that was also a thing as well, kids. Powered on, and it booted into DOS. because this if you don't know what disk means, or DOS, disk operating system, it was a very, very basic, probably quite a powerful kind of language, but it was all keyboard stuff. So the next time you watch The Matrix and you see people typing in commands, that was how we had to roll back in 1990, 1995, 1996. There was none of this Windows 10 and plug and play bollocks. Oh no. It was all DOS, it was all commands. I used to know a few commands. Well, I always knew enough commands to run games, and that was about as far as I went. I don't think you could you program in DOS? I don't think you could. No, I think DOS was just a means of running software. Anyway, if you want to know what DOS is, come out of this video, go and do a quick search on YouTube, and you'll find somebody that's better equipped to tell me what DOS is. So anyway, yeah, put the disc in, powered on. Now, if I remember rightly, I'm doing this from memory, and it was 25 years ago. I think it was like MAME.exe /Galaxian, something like that. And basically what that was doing is it was running MAME, and then it was telling MAME to load Galaxian. And within a few seconds, poof, there we go, Galaxian appeared on the screen. Now, like I said, if I remember rightly, I don't think there was any sound, which was mildly annoying, but you know what, it didn't matter. Seeing this thing run, seeing this, the glorious Starfield, the attract screen, credits, I mean, that proved to me that this was the real deal. This wasn't some kind of poor man's clone. This was actually Arcade Galaxian. Now, I can't remember what other games there were. I think Space Invaders was on it. Pac-Man was definitely on it. Possibly Centipede, I might be wrong. I can't remember exactly. I mean, I don't remember. MAME came out, like I said, in 1996, the 24th of December 1996. I didn't get to play this until, I'm sure it was 1997. So I probably didn't. The version of MAME that I had, I don't think would be version 1. I think version 1 only supported a very few couple of games. But it was a very, very early version, very early indeed. So that was it. I discovered that, and wow, that was it. Getting internet at that point was, in fact, you know what? I tell a lie. I didn't have the internet at that point, and this is why I know, folks, because when I got this, I phoned my other mate Grant, who had the internet. So I went down to his house, and two of the games that Grant and I absolutely loved was, I don't know if you can see it, Year Kung Fu, used to play that at Stevenson College, and Rolling Thunder. So we went into Alta Vista or Yahoo, and we typed in Rolling Thunder game, or Rolling Thunder ROM as they were called, and I think we found it. I think we found Year Kung Fu and Rolling Thunder. We downloaded them. Now, bear in mind, this was via a dial-up modem. You were hitting dizzy download speeds of 1.5k per second. So anyway, we got, after a few coffees, the games had downloaded, and we furiously typed MAME.exe /ER, because I think that was the name of the ROM. It was a zip file, and it didn't work. So we tried Robotron, we tried Rolling Thunder, and it didn't work. So a bit more searching, and we discovered that MAME would not run every single game ever. It could only run games that it was supporting. So then I can't remember the exact timelines. The fact that this existed, that really pushed me to get the internet. So I got the internet in 1997, and I started downloading games. I mean, there was a website called Dave's Video Game Classics, and it was everything emulator. I mean, I didn't even know what an emulator was. I'd never heard the word emulation before. Was emulation even a thing before video games? I don't know. Anyway, I got the internet, and maybe every couple of weeks a new version of MAME would come out, and Dave's Video Game Classics, it was always on the front page. It would tell you that MAME 0.3 was coming out next week, and the new games, it would tell you the new games that it was going to support. And it's very, very difficult for me to try and explain and put into words just how that felt, how exciting that was, because this was an opportunity to, not just to be able to play these games. As far as I was concerned, I was owning these games. So every game that I downloaded, every ROM that I downloaded was effectively me owning a cabinet. I owned Gauntlet 2, I owned Galaxy, and I owned GR Kung Fu. It was just unbelievable. So I would download, and the great thing was, this was before people really knew too much about copyright and all that kind of thing. You would go into, when MAME came out, you would eagerly keep, every day I would go to Dave's Video Game Classics to see if it had been released. As soon as it was out, download, and then he very, very conveniently had all the games ready to download. You just clicked on it, save, and away you went. Then, I can't remember the exact timeline, a couple of years later, I moved jobs. I had my own office. I was an admin manager. I had my own office, my own computer, and we got internet. Now, at that point, it was just really emails. And you need to remember, this was very, very, very early days of the internet. Google wasn't a thing. Facebook was years away. Forget Instagram and YouTube. They were much, much later. All you really got was, like I said, you got Yahoo, Alta Vista. I can't remember, there was probably some other ones. But I very quickly found Dave Video Games Classics on, when I was at work. I would be working, and what I would do is I would go into Dave's Video Game Classics every day, and I would use the faster download speed. I don't know what kind of speed it was. I don't know what connection my work had. But I used to, because I was the admin manager, I had access to petty cash, so I would order myself floppy disks, and I would download all the games. Some of the massive games, like if it was over 1 meg, what I had to do was I would have to download it, but because the 1 meg would not fit on a disc, I had to unzip it into 2 zips, so that I could then, for example, Year Kung Fu, you would have Year 1 and Year 2, and then I would have to basically split it on discs. Now, that's insane. When you think nowadays, I can download 40 meg a second. I can download the entire MAME ROM set in 5 hours, all 500 gig, whatever it is nowadays. But yeah, back in the day, I would download all the games, I would take the floppy disks home, I would transfer all the zip files, and then I would take the disks back, and then just continue. So yeah, very quickly I had a really sizable MAME collection. I mean, because it didn't support a lot of games, you had every single game. It was easy to keep up to date. What I didn't realise until a bit later on was every version of MAME, and this was the slight annoyance about MAME, every version of MAME would break certain ROMs. So whilst Galaxian would run on 0.3, it may not run on 0.4. So what you had to do was you had to re-download, you had to download the latest, not the latest, you had to download a new version of Galaxian. Now, when MAME was only supporting like 100 ROMs, it was dead easy, because again, Dave's Video Game Classics very, very generously used to have all the latest ROMs. It would tell you what ones you needed, so it was very easy to keep up to date. But with each version of MAME coming out, the supported games just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, until, before long you're talking maybe 1,000 games, hundreds of games, 1,000 games. I mean, now I think it's like 10,000 games. I mean, MAME, the latest version of MAME supports it supports handhelds. I think it even supports consoles. It certainly supports mechanical games. I've got no interest in these at all. So yeah, it was a pain in the arse, especially when you bear in mind that broadband wasn't really a thing until about 2000, 2001. My dad, he was the first person, bless him, to get broadband. I think it was 50k per second he was on, which, considering we were on 1.5k download, to jump to 50k was mind blowing. So I was able to keep up to date using my dad's internet. But as I says, the more games that got supported with MAME, you had to keep downloading games. And at this point, all these companies like Namco and Konami and Capcom, they suddenly cottoned on that, hang on a second, people are actually wanting to play all these old games. Because you need to remember, something like this was like 10 years old. Who was going to want to play a 10-year-old arcade game? Nobody. Absolutely nobody. Well, apart from me and other geeks. So very quickly, all these companies started to kind of clamp down. You know, they didn't want Dave freely distributing every Namco game, which, you know, whilst it was annoying to people like myself, you can't blame them, because they suddenly realised that there was a market for old games, and they started putting out, when things like the Sony PlayStation came along, they started putting out all their compilations, and they started basically putting out what I would say was like MAME, but it was all licensed, so all the games you could play pole position, you know, all these games, MAPE and all that kind of stuff. So getting a hold of ROMs was a wee bit more difficult. You had to kind of know where to go. You know, you had to know what websites to go. This was before like VPN, but so you could still find them, but you had to know where to go. But coupled with the fact that you had a really slow internet, downloading all these ROMs time and time again became a complete pain in the arse. So there was a program which to this day I have never ever managed to figure out how to use it. I wish I could. Listen to that. That's actually giving me an idea for a video. Yeah, that is the most awesome track screen ever. Yeah, where was I? Yeah, so the fact that we had this really, really slow internet, trying to keep up to date with all the latest ROMs was a complete pain in the arse. So this program called ClearPro, I think it's ClearPro, what it would do, you could download because when you downloaded like a ROM file, say for example Galaxian, it was a zip file that would be called Galaxian, but if you unzipped it, there was different ROMs, as they're called, and there might be maybe 10 ROMs, each of them has got a different name. Now when each version of MAME came out, some of these ROMs wouldn't work, so you had to change it. So I think Dave's Video Game Classics and other websites like MU Paradise and that kind of stuff, they would actually, as well as give you the option to download the full ROM, they would just give you the option to download the ones that had changed, or the ROMs that had changed. So if you had the new ROMs plus your existing sort of set of ROMs, you could use this program which it would basically do some witchcraft and convert your ROMs from, you know, MAME version 0.3 to MAME version 0.4, so it would all work. Now, I could never figure that out at all. So yeah, that's what you had to do, and like I says, over the preceding 25 years, the number of games that MAME has that MAME supports is phenomenal. Now, what blows my mind is the games. I mean, to kind of backtrack a wee bit, the MAME development team, they never, well, at least they've said that, because they would have to say that, they never developed MAME so that people like myself could play the games. They said it was all about basically archiving all these games for history, because I don't know what percentage of these games still exist. I mean, MAME supports 10,000 games. I would guarantee there's probably a lot of games in there that there are no arcade games, no original arcade games available. I suppose they would have to have had access to at least one to get the ROMs. I mean, how you actually manage to save data from a ROM chip and convert it into a zip file is beyond me. But yeah, I mean, so MAME was really set up just to kind of archive all these games. And what they said was it was a sort of a, not an after effect. It just happens that you could actually play them as well. The whole point of them was running the code, getting the right clock speed, making sure that everything emulated properly, and the fact that you could play them was an added bonus. Personally, I think that's a lot of bollocks. I think they knew exactly what they were doing, because I mean, you know, why would you have the ability to change your controls? Why would you have the ability to put coins in and change the sound and all that? But they obviously had to see that by law. Where was I going with that? So yeah, that was kind of the reason MAME was set up. Now, for somebody like myself, again, I've mentioned this loads of times, for somebody like myself, as a kid growing up in the 70s and 80s, I live in central Scotland, and I never had any arcades really near to me. No, I mean, I wasn't lucky like people who live in Blackpool and Bridlington and Whitley Bay and all these places, all these seaside resorts down in England. They were the absolute mecca for the arcade. They were the classic video game years. You know, they were wonderful, wonderful places. Arcades were quite dark. They were quite seedy. It's where all the sort of bad people used to hang about. And when I did get the very occasional chance to go to Blackpool, you know, you kind of felt that you were being a wee bit down and dirty going into them, but it was exciting. You know, just being in that environment was wonderful. So because I never really got access to arcades, I mean, the only arcades I really got to play on a regular basis, when I say regular, maybe once every couple of weeks, whatever, would be, there was a big arcade. It wasn't that big actually, but they had all the latest games. It was called LA's in Lothian Road in Edinburgh. I think it's now I was going to say a disco. I don't know, what do they call these places? A nightclub? Is it a nightclub now? Nightclub sounds very 90s, doesn't it? Discos were 80s, nightclubs were in the 90s. I don't know what you call it now. I have no idea. Haven't been in one for years. But anyway, I think it's now we'll call it a disco. And the only other arcade that I did get access to once a week for a couple of years was the one in Bathgate. It was my mate Kenny, Axeman. He does come onto the channel occasionally. I'm actually going to see him tonight, funnily enough. Yeah, Kenny and I, we worked at the same place. We started the same college course. I can't remember what it was, business studies or something extremely dull. And yeah, it was in Bathgate. And there was an arcade, so at lunchtime we would go and get a bag of chips and we'd head down to the arcade and play. I'm trying to think what games I remember. Rolling Thunder, it was Kenny that taught me the delights of Rolling Thunder. Tekken World Cup, they had a sit down Star Wars, they had Sky Kid. I can actually visualise them. They had an R-Type over there. I think they had a Rastan. Yep, I'm sure they had a Rastan as well. They had fruit machines and that kind of stuff. So yeah, but the point is, I didn't have arcade games on my doorstep, and certainly, you know, in the sort of like the early years, sort of like the 70s through to about 1980, it was probably about 1985, 1986 before I really got to actually go to arcades. At that point I could drive as well, I was old enough to get the bus and that kind of stuff, so I never got exposure to arcade games other than when we would go down, we used to go camping down to Essex. Why? I have no idea. It was a great holiday, I have to say. Think Carry On Camping, that was pretty much my my holidays as a kid, wonderful days. But yes, some of the campsites would occasionally have an arcade game. Or my dad was a rugby player, he used to play a lot of rugby, and every Saturday I would go with my dad, I would get dragged all over Scotland, my dad would play rugby, and at the end of the game he would go into the clubhouse and I wasn't allowed in, I would have to stand outside, or I could usually maybe go in and he would buy me a packet of crisps, Tudor crisps and a bottle of Coca-Cola. And if I was lucky, there would be a Phoenix arcade machine or a Xavius or, you know, Space Invaders, whatever. Oh, and the other time was, the Sports Centre. That was the very first time I saw an arcade machine. Used to go to judo for a few months, and they got a Space Invaders. They had track and field in 1942, various other games. So, getting back on track again, I never really had access to arcade games until about 1985, and so when I got MAME, 1996, 1997, suddenly I could play all these games that I'd only heard about, all these games I'd maybe seen briefly while stopping for a piss on M6 services. I'd ask my mum for 10 pence, and no, you're not getting any, we can't afford it, you're not getting any money. And then, computer and video games, they had the arcade section, and being able, I remember, is it 10 yards? 10th, what's it called? 10 yards? Yeah, it is 10 yards. Yeah, the American football game. I remember seeing a review of that in computer and video games arcade section, and then years later loading it up on my computer, and again that was just mind blowing. So the fact that MAME has brought all these games available, it's brought them home for people to enjoy. It's absolutely incredible, and I honestly think that MAME really did kind of kickstart the whole retro gaming scene. It really did, because it brought all these games to the fore. It made people aware of them. It let them play them. And I honestly, whilst Capcom and Konami and all these, I understand they own the machines, I really think that these companies owe a lot to the MAME development team, because if it wasn't for MAME, people would have completely forgotten about all these games, and I really don't think the video game hobby would be where it is now had it not been for MAME, because they made people aware, they made experts, programmers aware that it is possible to write a program that then allows you to run a game on a non-native piece of hardware. Just mind blowing. And I'm very lucky. I've got these three bad boys. You cannot believe how happy I am that I've got these. The fact that I can just come downstairs, I can play all these games, stick a credit in, away I go. There you go. Start. The fact that I can just put a credit in and just play these games like that, it's just absolutely phenomenal. Right, you be quiet. I shouldn't have started that, should I? Right, I'm not going to do anything else. Yeah, I'm lucky. Apart from having these three guys, I've got a huge round. I'm going to. No, I'll just like that. I'll just die. Let me just die. Come to daddy. There we go. Excellent. Yeah, I've got more machines, consoles, computers than I can shake a stick at, and I love them. I really do. I mean, I've got all the latest machines and that kind of stuff, so I'm completely spoiled for choice. But one of the questions that I get asked quite a lot is if you were going to get put on a desert island and you could only have one system, you know, and you can't get access to any other systems, what would it be? It would be one of these. It would be MAME. Because there are so many, there's thousands of games. I love the challenge of them. These games were designed, you need to remember, arcade games were designed to make money. They were designed to be enjoyable, because if they weren't enjoyable, nobody would play them. But they were basically taken over from pinball machines. They were replacing fruit machines. Unfortunately, arcade games has gone the full circle, and now you don't really get arcade games, which is a shame. But I think that's because hardware in the home has now caught up with arcade hardware. You know, I mean, I was down at Arcade Club a few months ago, and there's some latest shooters. Is it Impossible Mission or whatever it is? I can't remember. They are still bringing out arcade games, big, massive light gun games. And I don't think the hardware that powers them is any more powerful than like an Xbox, PlayStation 4 probably. I've completely forgotten what I was talking about there. I can't remember. But yeah, like I said, I do think that had it not been for MAME making these games available, I don't think we would have what we've got now. I was trying to remember it. I'm talking about why that would be the machine I want. Yeah, I mean, whilst I do enjoy playing, Left 4 Dead's and The Last of Us, all these games, there is something fantastically appealing and exciting about dropping a coin in, or a virtual coin, i.e. pressing a button to add a credit. There is something magical about putting a credit into a machine and pressing the start button. Now, obviously, back in the day, it was real money you had to put in. So when you had 20 pence or you had 10 pence left, you would wander about the arcade machine. You would go in, you'd be putting your hand into the coin reject things, hoping to find 10 pence. So what did you play? Were you going to play Space Invaders? Were you going to have a shot of Galaxian? Were you going to play Gauntlet? Well, I think Gauntlet was probably 20 pence, I can't remember. And forget Afterburner, because that was a whopping 50 pence. And don't even start me on Dragon's Lair, that was £1. So yeah, you had to make an informed choice, and whatever you decided, you drop your 10 pence into the slot, hit the start button, and do what you could, and you knew that when your third life was over, that was you. You had to basically console yourself with just looking at the attract screen. And trust me, as a young child growing up in Scotland with not a lot of money, my mum and dad would give me 10 pence or 20 pence if I was really lucky. So after my 2 games were over, probably within about 40 seconds, I would just have to kind of sit and watch it, or else watch somebody else play it. But yeah, that excitement of playing these games has never left me, and even now that I've got these arcade machines here, I've got access to virtually every single arcade game ever written. That excitement has never left me. Being able to put a high score on the table, that's what it's all about. And I've always said this, when people going about how wonderful new arcade, or not arcade games, when people going about how wonderful their PlayStation 4 and their PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X games are, yeah, that's fine, they're super realistic, and to take nothing away from them, they are amazing. But you would never ever go to work and tell somebody that you've completed the latest Call of Duty, because nobody cares. Nobody cares. I don't care 2 hoots if somebody says to me they've just completed Call of Duty or the latest Uncharted. I really don't care at all. But trust me, if I got 100,000 on Galaxian, I would be sharing that motherfucker all over social media. It would be in Twitter. I would even join Instagram. I would be mentioning it on my Friday Waffle. I would make people aware. And here's the sad part: people would actually be impressed. People would be impressed if you got 100,000 at Galaxian. I mean, my mate Charlie Farr, he's the world champion at this game, and you know. I don't know if Charlie thinks that's a big deal, but to people like myself, that is bloody awesome, absolutely awesome. So yeah, if you can play a game, an arcade game, and be good at it, that's bragging rights, absolute bragging rights. I mean, my mate Andrew Lowe, sick boy, if you're on the intraweb, Andy, he like Charlie Farr, he can virtually nail every arcade game. He's just got this incredible talent, and yeah, I can only imagine how much of a hero you must have been, you know, in an arcade in Blackpool, playing a game that you can absolutely nail. I mean, my mate Tony Temple, he's got the world high score on Missile Command. He's got an absolutely fantastic book which you need to get. Tony talks about as a kid learning to play Missile Command, and it's a greasy spoon cafe, and it got to a point where he could play the game for hours on one credit, and he became a hero, and he later went on to become the world champion. And you know, that is awesome. That is absolutely awesome. I mean, a little anecdote which I hope Tony won't mind me mentioning, and I've mentioned it before, and it's funny as anything. Tony set about getting the world high score record on Missile Command. He had his arcade machine. He bought Archer McLean's Missile Command machine. He had it in his living room, and he used to play this. You know, I don't know how, he would play it for a couple of hours every single day. And when he finally beat the world record, his wife, the first thing she said was, "I take it we can get rid of that machine out of the living room." It wasn't like, "Well done, Tony, we can get the living room back to normal again." And that is, that's obviously people that don't understand arcade games. They don't think anything of it. But to people like nerds like myself, and probably people that are watching this, to be a gaming god at an arcade game is to be a gaming god. I mean, if you can play, I was going to say that game, if you can play this game, Defender, then you've nailed it. You know, any person that can get a good score in Defender is a gaming god in my book. So yeah, what else can I say? That is MAME. I could categorically say, you know, apart from the fact that it doesn't need Windows, but obviously MAME does need an operating system, so yeah, I'm going to give some credit to Windows and DOS, but I can categorically say MAME, multiple arcade machine emulator. MAME is quintessentially the finest piece of gaming software ever written. No arguments. So, anyway, listen guys, apologies about not answering any questions this week. I thought I had to tip my hat to the wonders of MAME. So yeah, listen, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, thank you very much for watching.